It really sort of starts when I turn 18. So when I turned 18, my mom ended up having a brain aneurysm. And
Oh, no.
so,
Has fishing ever helped you through a difficult time in your life?
absolutely. And I have two really good examples that kind of have bigger stories. Are you cool if I like
Okay.
kind of give the context there?
Oh, of course. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, excellent. So, the story itself obviously starts when I'm a young kid. Love fishing, love going outside, love hanging out with my, family every Sunday and stuff. But at some point when I was younger, like elementary school, dad was out of the picture, just not a part of the family. So, of course, that's hard on my mom, that's hard on the kids and stuff like that. And then it really sort of starts when I turn 18. So, when I turned 18, my mom ended up having a brain aneurysm. And
Oh, no.
so this brain aneurysm, it was a severe one, and it didn't necessarily kill her, but what it did do was put her in a coma. So that night when she had it, she was life flighted out to a different state because Idaho didn't have the right medical equipment to sort of address
Okay.
what had happened to her. And she actually sat in a coma, eyes closed, just totally non-reactive for about 3 months.
Wow. 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. And then after that 3 months, she actually did open her eyes. She sort of woke up, I guess. But as far as like brain activity and any like body functionality at all, she was, for all intents and purposes, a vegetable. She could not talk. She could not move. She had to use like a breathing device to essentially stay alive. Uh, there was nothing. So, so after 3 months, she came out of the coma, but was just not there. Um, and let me tell you, there was a lot that happened in that 3 months leading up to that, and then of course afterwards. As this all happened or was happening, the household at the time was my mom, myself, my younger brother who was 13, and then my nephew, Javen. He was 3 at the time. And so the context there is that I also have an older sister. My older sister was troubled in many ways, was and still is to an extent. I honestly don't know, like addicted to some pretty heavy drugs. And she ended up having my nephew, Javen. He was unplanned, but after my sister had him, my mom took legal guardianship of Javen.
Okay.
So so that was the household. Was my sister was not in the picture at all. She was out either in prison or
Yeah. Yeah.
doing right
Mm.
things. So then after my mom, was it or as my mom is in a different state, basically only staying alive from like this medical equipment. She had what's called like a trach tube, which is where they like put like a tube in your I forget the specific term of your throat right here, like trachea something, and that's how she would breathe.
Wow.
So in those 3 months, I had a lot of big decisions to make. And the main decision was I could A, sort of just leave my siblings or my sibling, my nephew, and my mom and kind of just not take on the responsibility of anything. Or B, I could take full legal guardianship of all three of them.
Oh,
Um, Yeah, so it was a crazy
Far out.
decision.
At 18.
But like,
Oh, man.
but for me, it wasn't a decision because this is all like my
Yeah,
blood family. So like obviously I chose my
yeah.
family. And I got really lucky in the sense that my school principal, because I was 3 months about to graduate out of high school when all this happened. I told my principal, what was going what was going on, and she went to bat for me. She was like, "Okay, let's go talk to the lawyer. They pay for like all the legal fees and stuff." And within those 3 months, I was already getting like all the legal things written up and in court documents that I was going to take legal guardianship of my brother, my nephew, and my mom. So that was crazy. And then my principal was also like, at the time, I had like a pretty solid GPA, which is just like my grades. And she locked my grades into place and was like, "You're done with school. You're graduating right now." So
Wow.
she kicked me out of school like 3 months early. Obviously, I
Yeah.
graduated, but so I could be a guardian. So that's like uh the main context there. And so that would have been 2015 or 10 years ago.
Wow. Far out. My mind just thinking, when I was 18, I was thinking about whether or not I was going to work full time or go to university. And here you are becoming a legal guardian of three people. Wow. And your mum having gone through all of the health battles and she's essentially on life support. Like, oh my God. You would have had to have, you, your level of maturity and growing would have just been like vertical.
You're not kidding. I had to learn a lot of things incredibly fast. Stuff that I would have never imagined. And yeah, I was also thinking about going to college at the time, and I still actually tried. But as all of this was happening, my grandparents were around. However, in that first year, as my mom was in that state, my grandma actually passed away just kind of like natural causes and just old age sort of thing. And then the year after that, my grandpa passed away of essentially the same thing. So all of like every single person in terms of like I guess adults that I could look to for like true support pretty much just disappeared, which yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that have gone through something similar and it's just incredibly hard. Um and throughout all of this, like there was a small glimmer of hope that like maybe my mom would like kind of come out of it or start to heal or get better, right? Like the doctor said that there's a chance of this. So after she came out of the coma, she was moved into like a long-term care facility. And she pretty much stayed in that same state for about 2 to 3 years.
Oh,
Um, because like we were just looking for any signs and anything that we could latch onto to be like, okay, she might actually come out of this. But it just there's nothing there. So after about 2 to 3 years, I believe it was 2018. Uh, it was I had to make the decision essentially myself and my uncle at the time who lived in the state she was in, which was Utah, so not too far from my state of Idaho. But my uncle at the time, he and I were just like, I guess it's time. So that year, we kind of just said our final goodbyes and pulled the plug. But in that time, I learned so much and just lost so much, I feel like. But I learned, or I sold my first house because I had to sell the house we
Yeah.
were living in. Because it was my mom's house and I could not afford to pay the mortgage that she had at the time. But yeah, that's what I would say is kind of like the first arc of the story. That was like the first 3 years,
Mm.
right? Um, and then also while doing all this, I tried to go to college because I had a couple of scholarships right out of high school for like design and like photography and stuff like that. And so I did my first year at college and I did okay. Like I sort of managed trying to do the guardian thing and do school, but it wasn't phenomenal and it was just super hard. But I did meet um, someone who kind of changed my life. And that person was she was the director of the Student Success Center at the college I was going to. And she heard about my story um, through like this program I was going through. And when she heard that I was trying to sell my mom's house, she was like, she invited me, my younger brother, and my nephew to live with her and her husband out on their giant house right next to campus. She's like, you can just move in and stay until you're done with
Wow.
college. And just like that, I had only met this person the once or twice, and it's just not. It's I don't know. I don't think people meet other people like that very often. So
Wow.
they absolutely changed our lives, and we did it. We moved in, I think that same year on Christmas Eve. So the day before Christmas, we moved in and just started like kind of a whole brand new journey.
Far out, bro. I'm still trying to absorb and take all of that in. Far out. Like, what a journey you've been on so far. I mean, wow. I'm just thinking about, I don't want to bring it back up, but like the grief, and that year of your grandmother passing away while your mother was unfortunately in the state that she was in, and then your grandfather passing, and then having to pull the plug on your mother while also being a guardian for your younger brother and nephew. Man, that's unreal. That's yeah, that's a lot of life. You a lot of life in such a short period of time, man. And even though we're yet to get to, we're still part through the story, I just feel the resilience, that the
But
resilience of yourself. You have to have resilience, and in bucket loads too, to be able to do what you did, while also trying to go to college. And how amazing, it still makes me very hopeful for the world, that there are so many, that there are good, really, really good people like that lady that came and helped you, and as you say, effectively changed your life. That's yeah, beautiful, beautiful person to do that.
yeah, so um, Cindy and Mike are their names. They're the greatest people I've ever met. I love them to death, and I could never even begin to think of a way to properly thank them for just being in our lives and doing what they do. And what's amazing is that they are still part of our lives. Like they hang out with my nephew all the time. They take him like every weekend and help out with like sports and basketball and jujitsu and all of this stuff. They're like you said, they are a huge reminder that there are still just kind and amazing people out there. But to move the story, if you will, into its second arc, um, is kind of this is like the first arc was hard, right? Like kind of all the loss and stuff. But I think all of that really started to more so set in by the time I was hitting my like kind of my early to mid 20s. So at this point, I had kind of gotten past like that giant rush of like, okay, everyone's dying and I'm just trying to survive. Like I just need to find a way to stabilize and make sure that my nephew and brother have like a consistent roof over their heads and they have food and all this stuff, right? And I had figured that out. I had done it, and I got a ton of help, and I'd learned how to become an adult within those like first 2 or 3
Yeah,
years per se.
yeah.
But then I could kind of started focusing on myself a little more. So I got like a career job in solar and stuff like that, and I just kind of started working, and that's actually when I discovered fly fishing. A a coworker of mine, after a couple of years of my solar gig, him and his nephew invited me to go fly fishing with them at the Snake River, which is kind of like my local
Mhm.
river, and kind of my hat to Snake River
Okay.
fly. Um, and it was so good. Like we went out there, they showed me how to effectively just run a nymph rig under an
Oh
indicator,
yeah.
and we just crushed them better than any other fishing experience that I've ever had. And I don't know if it's because I'm like not the greatest angler in the world or just because fly fishing is more effective in that specific body of water, but I was, hooked immediately. And that kind of just became a huge part of my life throughout that point. But anyway, at that time, I kind of was starting to feel the fallout of losing everything. And I developed, pretty severe depression and anxiety, and just, I guess the doctors or my therapist, which is down the line, they called it dysthymia, I think, which is like a really, which is like a low form of like constant depression or something like that. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but I was not feeling well, and I didn't really know what to do
Mm.
or you know how to go about any of that. Just yeah. Uh, One of the things I was like thinking about, through all of this is that something that would happen a lot, and just thinking about it now is like I'd be driving or doing something alone, like on my way to work or to the grocery store or something, and I would just start crying. Like it would all just hit me randomly, and I would just cry just out of nowhere. That would happen consistently for like 2 years or so, which is just so wild. Um, but during all that time too, music was also a huge part of like just coping with everything. I love playing guitar. I love writing music specifically and being in bands and stuff. And I think that having that community of music, going and playing shows with my friends, and also being able to go outside and fish and lift that weight off of my shoulders, was pretty much how I was able to cope with everything and start to, I guess, rebuild and try to create a new life.
Wow. It's amazing how, well, a couple of things that really stuck out to me is it's amazing how our lives can just flow. Maybe like the Snake River, how we seem to just hit these bends that are struggling us, and then we hit these straits where we start to see, or people come into our lives that help us get on this sort of the straight, and we're flowing well. And much like maybe when you went to the that solar, you started doing solar work, and then meeting your buddy and his nephew, and getting introduced to that in a way of trying to help heal, but while still experiencing that condition, as you said. And do you know, at that time you didn't know much about that? You Was that something that seemed like very foreign, so new? I mean, the thoughts I imagine must have been, "Well, what is going on? What is wrong with me?" Well, what were you experiencing?
Like in terms of like the bad feelings, what was I experiencing there? Or just
Just in, I guess, the whole experience of it all, good,
yeah.
bad, or in the middle.
So throughout the whole thing, I think I can conclusively say that the main emotion there was deep sadness and very, very deep anger. Sadness because I lost everyone. Like that was all of the adults effectively that I could go to for help for anything. Um, and I lost my mom. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then anger would always bubble up, I think, right after that, because to me, I would always get angry at my mom during all of this. And I would think to myself, like, how could you leave me with so much?
Take your time, bro.
Yeah, I would always wonder and question, like, how could you leave me with this much burden?
Yeah. I know when we talk about, in my line of work, and we talk about grief in different stages, yep, anger is one of them. And as you say, you've got these thoughts of why, I guess, depending on what the situation is, and yours being such a very unique and difficult one, and sudden, and you're still only a teenager. I can imagine why, you had this, why me? Like, yeah, why I don't deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? And I can totally understand why you would have felt that way, man.
Yeah, and like, I'm sure, like most 18-year-olds or, people around that age, I loved playing music and I loved being in bands. And I already had my plan. Like, as soon as I turned 18 and was done with school, I was going to hit the ground running and just go tour with my bands as much as physically possible. And all of that just, not all completely ripped away, but my life shifted in a way that that sort of thing really wasn't, like feasible. And part of the anger to me was at the time I'd always feel like there goes my entire 20s. Like there goes, you know, that whole part of my life. So yeah, just tons of anger and like resentment and sadness. Throughout, I would say the first like 7 or 8 years.
Wow, wow. And did you mention, so music helping you alongside fishing, deal with that? What else did you do to help? Because that's a lot. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I was at a point where like I couldn't even go into public without like getting some sort of like anxiety attack. I couldn't feel anything. Like I couldn't feel happiness or sadness, or I was just becoming, numb to like myself and the world around me. And I think I was not okay. So I decided to seek out counseling specifically, and went through a couple counselors until I found one that really connected, and actually just felt like the right person to kind of talk about these things with. And there's actually one really, really awesome story I have about that, if you want to hear it, that really helped
Yeah,
actually.
of course, definitely.
Yeah, so this counselor, I worked with him for I think close to a year
Okay.
or so, maybe a little longer. And we'd done a lot of things and talked about a lot of different issues and stuff. But I think the main one overall was with my mom and the feelings I had there, because
Mm.
that sort of thing just would be on my mind constantly, and I would always be upset about it or feel bad about it. So after we worked through a lot of other things and we started going into the specifics with my mom, um, I think we did a really good job of, talking about it and helping me understand that it's okay to feel like that, and there's no guilt necessarily, that the world had dealt me that specific hand, and that I can live with it and I can accept it. But the story is that we both came up with a kind of idea towards the end of all of my counseling to let it go.
Okay.
And this is where I think fishing sort of helped play like its biggest role in all this. And the counselor knew that pretty much, I love going outside. I love fishing and camping and just being outdoors for all the reasons I explained earlier. And the idea was that I take a solo trip, like a night or two or a weekend, to one of my favorite places to like fish and clear my mind and just um, get the weight off of my shoulders, and yeah, and to think. And then I chose my place, which is kind of kind of like this back roads section or back country section of Yellowstone National Park that's just barely in the Idaho border. And so I chose that place for a lot of reasons. It's just gorgeous. The fishing is really great, and it's true. Like it's backcountry in the sense that there's no cell service. There's generally not really many people out in that section, like at all. Um, so I would be pretty solo, which is what I wanted. Um, and the whole point was to spend the day fishing and just enjoying my time and trying to clear my head. And then that night, um, the plan was to write a letter to my mom, essentially. And this is, a couple years after her dying. And in the letter, I wrote, all of these different things that I was angry to her about. And I
Mm.
wrote, why, and I wrote all the things I wish that could have, happened um, instead.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all, I I forgave her. I forgave her in the letter, and then I put the letter. in the fire pit that I had going as kind of like a symbolic act to just let it go.
Wow. Wow, bro. Like a real cathartic experience of being able to, yeah. I love that your therapist had helped you through that process of being able to let go, and do that in a way in an environment that was best suited for you. Uh,
Yeah, he was an amazing therapist. And what was really great about it is right then and there, after the litter was gone, right? It's not like the weight of the world magically lifted off my shoulders. But in kind of like the days and the weeks following, every day would just get a little easier.
I liken it as a way to be able to start the process or start your life in a different direction, as opposed to sort of looking back at what was and the darkness that it was shrouded in, but then maybe do a 180 turn around.
Yeah.
And if you say let go and move forward in the direction you want your life to be going in, uh,
Yeah, it wasn't like life changing in the moment per se, but I think it was life changing in the long run, and just sort of being able to write all of those things down and then do my best to let it go was incredibly helpful, and doing it in somewhere that I connect with on so many levels, just out in nature and doing the things I love, so fishing and just enjoying the outdoors. It was what I needed. So
amazing, amazing, Tyson, because I know that a lot of people that do need to do that don't do that, haven't maybe felt the courage or the ability to be able to, because you would have gone, I can just imagine you when you were there in that moment, the emotions, everything going around you, what's going through your mind. And that's why people, in my experience working in this space, they avoid it because it can be, I can imagine you so over, it could feel almost overwhelming. And sometimes it's easier to avoid. So man, hats off to you for being able to do that and really sit in a what may have felt like an alone space and just get really aligned with your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, but do something knowing that that's what you needed to do to allow yourself to start looking forward and moving in a direction you wanted to be moving in. Wow.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because that really was for me the turning point of things just getting easier every day and things getting a little better. And it took a couple years, but I'd say maybe this year is like the first year of just kind of feeling pretty decent, about everything, and feeling, confident in being a guardian and taking care of other humans and stuff like that. So,
Wow. That's amazing because sure you've done that for yourself, but now the ripple effect is that, yeah, as you say, you can now be a better guardian. You can be the best person that you can be, and live a life that you want to live, and be there for your nephew. So, is your nephew, is he fly fish?
he does. Um, I'll be the first to say that I'm not like the greatest teacher of all time, but
Sure.
he does like to go out and fly fish, and when we do go out, it's usually a riot. And sometimes I'll take him out on like really hard days, like in the middle of winter and stuff, because I love it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't love that so much, but generally speaking, I think I got very, very lucky with my nephew because he is just such a cool kid. He's smart and he's just kind. Um, he's not he's not necessarily like mean to people or uncaring. He's a very caring and kind young man. And luckily, he's at this point pretty into the outdoors and just loves, sports in general. Basketball is his current main sport, which has been really cool to see. And just this year, I did, or he did essentially. I signed him up for the Mayfly project, which
Ah,
is,
yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. It's like this really awesome program that takes foster children mainly and pairs them up with a fly fishing mentor, and they go out on a couple different excursions and teach them how to fly fish. Javen's not technically a foster kid, but I was talking to the folks there, and I was like, I'm not his biological dad. Can he still sign up? And I think this was the first year that they actually let kids in Javen's situation sign up. And
Wow.
he got to learn from multiple different mentors how to fly fish over a span of like a couple months. And it was just a really amazing program. And at the end of it, they gave him like a setup, a fly rod, and like a bag and flies and everything. And of course, like if he needs help, I'm always there, but he can essentially go out and do it on his own if he wanted to. So,
Wow. What an amazing program. That's fantastic.
yeah,
And I'm so glad that there are programs like that out there because and especially with youth, because there's such a young at a young age and again the emotions and stuff that they would have had to have gone through and are going through that I mean even adults would struggle to deal with and process. So that's cool that there are people out there doing that type of work, real meaningful stuff.
I agree. I think a huge shout out to the Mayfly Project. All of the kids that I saw at the program were becoming young fishermen and anglers and fisherwomen and just killing it out there. And all the mentors were very, very screened, as in, I think they got like background checks and like real background checks and everything. So it was a really great group of people out in Southeast Idaho, and they did a really good job. So
Yeah, oh, massive shout out to them. Yeah, hopefully that initiative, long may it last, continue to do the good things it does. I guess from your experience that you've been through, and now that you're starting to come, as you say, you've found a happier space now. You're doing the work, and you've starting to bear the fruits of that hard work. What's a piece of advice or a mantra that you live by that helps you to continue to stay in that positive space and frame of mind?
uh, yeah, so there's actually one that really stood out to me before I started counseling. It was part of the reason why I did start counseling, and is still just something. It's a phrase I think about almost all the time, and it's from my favorite band of all time, Gojira, which I have their hoodie on right now. But the phrase is, "If you change yourself, you change the world." And even simpler, like I would always think of it, the world changes when you do. So for some reason, that specific lyric in that specific song, and the song is Silvera,
Okay.
just really like deeply, deeply resonated with me when I needed it the most. And I decided I needed to start changing myself for my specific world to change, I guess. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that would be my piece of advice is A, go listen to some Gojira, and B, the world changes when you do.
Wow. Yeah. I'd agree. I could. Yeah. that's really good advice actually, and I'll definitely go and listen to their music after this. I haven't heard of the band,
Good.
but I'll go and listen to them. But that makes that makes perfect sense, right? Unless it sort of ties back to if we don't change or nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So yeah, I'm glad that you're able to take that on board, yeah, and go away and do that hard work that you've done to be able to change and be, be a change in the world that you want. Leave it in a better place and make it a better place. While on that sort of topic, what advice would you give to someone going through a difficult time?
I will speak mainly to folks who might be going through something like I did, like maybe they're taking on some parental roles or guardianship roles or something like that. Uh, I think the best advice I could give there is to just reach out to as many people as you possibly can because everyone will help you. I'm not saying that in like a guilty way, but to me, for my nephew, the phrase like it takes a village, to do this was very true. And I, in talking to people, not, asking them like, hey, I need your help, well, it just, even explaining what's going on, people were more than happy and like really they want to help. So take that help and don't feel guilty or bad or whatever about it, but just use it and do what you have to do to stay, I guess, alive and,
Yeah.
you know, keeping your person or people that you're taking care of safe, basically.
No, I love that, man. I love that because, like you say, we try to, and I guess there's sometimes as men, I'm not sure. I guess it's worldwide. Really can speak to that in here in New Zealand is that there's that stoicism when it comes with men. There's like, oh, yeah, I'll just do it, or I just you try and take on everything yourself, and then you find it difficult when you really do need to have help, get help, and so yeah, I would get behind that advice as well, 100%. There are times when it's okay to reach out for help. Hey, and we all need help, as you say. It takes a village to raise a kid. So, no, great advice. In your story, and I don't, when I say this, I don't mean to sort of bring up, what you've done, but I want to just say how much one, I appreciate you being vulnerable and taking the time and effort to be able to share your story. A very unique story, one filled with a lot of grief, sadness, and dark times, but conversely, one that's now full of light, hope, and love. And you're now moving onward in a direction that you want. And I know that your grandmother, your mother, and your grandfather will be extremely proud of you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I deeply appreciate being able to just chat with you about it and honestly hope that maybe someone that's hearing this that is going through something relatively similar can use it and at least know that they're not, alone. And also just hopefully that they go fish more, go fish
Yeah,
with their friends more,
yeah, yeah,
take their friends fishing or,
yeah. It's good to hear that stories like yours, you're doing the work, and there's light in your future, and a lot of positivity, and it's great to hear that your nephew, is gonna live. He's got a better outlook at life now because of the guardianship that you've taken on. So what a pleasure, man. I always say this to everyone that I chat with, that it's an absolute pleasure to do what I do, and to be able to be invited into someone's safe space, and then to be able to share that with them, and just share it with authenticity, and just be. Um, and I think that's what we need to see more of, because yeah, we can, especially men, we can look pretty, stoic and hard and in the exterior, but deep down, yeah, there's a lot of feeling and emotion there that often's unresolved. So, um, yeah, thank you for contributing to helping normalize that.
I appreciate it, and the feeling is very mutual. Thank you for letting me um, be vulnerable and talk about it, openly with you, essentially someone I've interacted with online a little bit, but I've never met face to face.
Yeah,
But just through your videos, I knew that it would be an awesome chat and that you would be someone I could be vulnerable to. And I also agree it should be more normal for us to be able to just have a really good conversation and talk about stuff like that.
yeah.